Welcome everyone. Today you join us on an absolutely perfect day because not only is the weather great, but Alex and I are going to be riding and walking you through this brand new Harley-Davidson Pan America. We're going to go through all the highlights with the powertrain, suspension, brakes. Alex is going to walk you through the tech, and then we're both going to get it out on the road and see how it rides. And we owe a huge thanks to High Country Harley-Davidson here in Frederick, Colorado. They're the ones that lent us this bike for the day. So if you want to go see one in person yourself, give them a visit. The Pan America comes to life. It's funny actually, this really does not sound like the typical Harley-Davidson. It's got very different noises. It's also a lot smoother. The first little bit of riding that I did on this bike earlier today, I was kind of granny shifting it. I wasn't really revving it up very much because I'm used to riding my Sportster, and Sportster doesn't have that great of a top end. Then I remembered that this engine revs to 9,500 RPM and it's got 150 horsepower, and whew, it's wow, if you rev it out, it is exhilarating to say the least. This right here is undeniably the crown jewel of the new Harley-Davidson Pan America. It's the 1250 Revolution Max engine, 150 horsepower, 94 pound-feet of torque. It has individual throttle bodies, dual overhead cam, it's variable valve timing. This is an impressive step forward for technology in Harley-Davidson. And another really cool thing, especially for an adventure bike, is the fact that it has hydraulic lash adjusters, so there is no required valve train maintenance. Around front, you get a 47mm inverted Showa fork, and in the back, you have a Showa rear shock with a piggyback reservoir. 7.5 inches of suspension travel all the way around, and this suspension is fully adjustable. To slow this beast down, you get Brembo monoblock calipers. These are dual discs, 320mm in the front, and you also get a Brembo brake in the rear with a 280mm disc. Now, right here is a very cool factory option. You can see this very dirty wheel that's already been seeing some use. This is a laced tubeless wheel, so it's got kind of that old school wire spoke look, but it is tubeless. This bike also feels so much lighter and more maneuverable than you would expect. I mean, 534 pounds, that's on par for an ADV, but it really feels surprisingly light, kind of like the Multistrada did. It's also really easy to ride. Again, it's smooth, the transmission is smooth, the clutch is light, the brakes are powerful, and this is just a really easy motorcycle to get used to. A couple other cool features you get on this motorcycle are an Olin steering damper right there, and you also get standard cruise control, heated grips. There's a lot of tech on this bike.
All right, we'll flip the bike on here, and the 6.8-inch TFT display comes to life. This is a really big screen. It's a touch screen too, which is nice, and it is glove friendly. You can use it with gloves, and it's tilting, so you can tilt it and kind of get the glare off of it. You can control your navigation and your music if you have your phone connected. This has TPMS, so you can see your tire pressures right there. This indicates the electronic suspension. I'll get to that in a second. And I really like how you can not only use this as a touch screen, but it also shows you what buttons you can press on the selector on the left-hand side. So you can still use these buttons, and you can use the buttons while you're riding, although the touchscreen disables once you're up to speed. Up here is the mode selector. Right now I'm in sport mode. You can see the sport mode icon right there, but there's a bunch of different modes on this bike. It'll adjust not only the throttle, but also the suspension as well. So you can go into off-road mode right there. There's also an off-road plus that disables ABS in the rear wheel. You also have a custom A mode right there, a rain mode, a road mode, and then back to sport. One thing I did want to mention is that the custom off-road and custom off-road plus, as well as custom B ride modes, are only available on the special. Once you're in here, you can customize all the different custom ride modes. So you can copy from a different ride mode. I'm not going to do that, but you can adjust the engine map mode. Same thing with engine braking. So base, +1, -1, or max. Throttle response, same thing there. Traction control, you can switch that between raid, road, and sport. ABS you can control between road and sport as well. You can change the suspension damping. And then you can also change the adaptive ride height. Adaptive ride height is by far the coolest piece of tech on this bike. The whole bike will lower down between 1 inch and 2 inches depending on what your rear preload is set to, and that just makes it easier to get your feet on the ground, especially for small riders like myself. You have 4 different settings: auto, which does everything for you. You have auto with a short and long delay. That's for if you're, riding through a parking lot and you don't necessarily want the bike to lower when you're doing slow speed maneuvers. And then you also have lock at ride height, so it will not lower down at all if you don't want it to. And this bike does have a 6-axis IMU, so you get all the tech you would expect from a high-end adventure bike in 2021. Cornering traction control, cornering ABS, an electronically linked cornering brake system, cornering drag torque slip control, and hill hold control. So tons of tech, lots of customizability. If you're a fan of tech, there's really nothing to complain about on this bike. It's missing nothing.
This is pretty funny because this is only the second Harley-Davidson I've ridden. And the first one was a live wire, so my Harley experience is pretty odd. Coming to a stop here. Oh yeah, felt the suspension lower down for sure. I didn't really feel the bike lower as much as I felt my feet getting closer to the ground, which is a good thing. It means you can't really feel the bike doing a whole lot. Coming down to a stop on the brakes, putting my feet down. And yeah, it's totally squatting. That is really cool. You really don't feel it working, especially when you take off from a stop. You don't feel the bike lifting up at all. It feels really natural. And it just makes it easier to get your feet down. You definitely feel it when you're coming to a stop.
If you want a full rundown on every little bit of new tech that's been added to this motorcycle, check out the previous video that we made on our channel. But now, what's really cool is that we get to do something that we didn't do before, and that's get hands-on with it. So let's start up at the front with a little bit of design. This headlight, this has been kind of a source of controversy with this motorcycle. A lot of people really don't like the way that it looks. I actually think it's pretty cool. Back in the day, I grew up with these Hoover vacuums that had a pretty much identical looking headlight, and so it gives me the warm and fuzzies. Another little cool element is that you can see the Harley-Davidson logo here actually integrated into the headlight. I just love how broad and wide it is. It gives the motorcycle a very tough, wide look to it. Now let's move around to the rest of this bike and really just take a look at the fit and the finish and the quality of the paint, all of these materials. It's really well put together, kind of like the live wire. All of these buttons have a nice feel to them. They feel solid. It's easy to tell what they do. And little details like this I think are really cool. I mean, what is that, like a topographical map of some kind? It says Pan America. It feels nice to the touch. Something else that feels really nice are these seats. When I press on it, look at how much give there is to that. This is one of the most comfortable seats I've ever seen on a motorcycle. I also think it's cool the way that after a few heat cycles, the exhaust has been changing color. Although, admittedly, I have to say this is probably my least favorite part of the motorcycle as it comes from the factory. Of course, there are going to be tons of accessory pipes you can add, but this whole muffler right here is just too big. It kind of clutters up the design of the bike. Another design element that is pretty cool are these turn signals right here, which sit inside of these crash bars. So if the bike goes down, you're not going to have to replace this component. And these crash bars come standard on the special version of the Harley-Davidson Pan America. Because this is a Harley-Davidson, you might imagine it has some major drawback like it's really heavy or it's super expensive, but it's actually surprisingly competitive. Another really popular motorcycle in this segment is a BMW R1250 GS. The GS starts at $17,995. Well, this Pan America starts at $17,319. So it is a little bit less expensive at a base MSRP. This Pan America also weighs 534 pounds, and the GS weighs 549, so it's actually a little bit lighter than the GS as well. What we're looking at here is the special version of the Pan America, so it's not the base model, and the special starts at $19,999, and it comes with some cool features, the most exciting of which is the semi-active suspension.
Now sadly, this is pretty much the most amount of off-roading we have in this area, so we're not really doing an off-road test here, but very soon we are going to Get On Adventure Fest presented by Revzilla, and they're gonna have Harley-Davidson Pan Americas there. So if any of you guys want to ride with us and, well, see some cool bikes, you should get out to Adventure Fest, and hopefully then we'll have a chance to actually take one of these on a real trail.
Now here we have the key for the Pan America. You can see a pretty sharp looking blade style key, but you don't actually have to use that to run the bike. As long as this key fob is in your pocket, that's all you need to get going. One thing you can use the blade style key for is unlocking the rear seat. So I get to pop this off. You can see we've got a little unwrapped toolkit here, and if I pop the main seat off, look at that. There's two positions to put the front of the seat. So without needing any tools, you can change the seat height. Of course, the windscreen on the Pan America is adjustable, and it's not the easiest mechanism in the industry. I would say the Multistradas is probably the best I've used, but it is kind of a cool actuation. It's almost got a pistol grip and a trigger that you pull, so it's satisfying to use. Right here you can see the skid plate on the Pan America. It's not massively thick. There will be accessory skid plates coming out, and that might not be a bad thing to beef up a little bit, especially because the ground clearance on the Pan America definitely isn't super impressive. But this bike also has a center stand, and of course it's not a light machine. It weighs, you know, what an adventure bike typically weighs, but I haven't tried this yet, so let's see how difficult it is to get it onto the center stand. That's really not bad. And again, I'm 5'10", I weigh like 162 pounds, so your average full-size adult will have no problem getting this onto the center stand.
What'd you think?
Oh my God. That is a fun bike. That is also a tiny helmet. But man, the power, it's so smooth, it's so easy to ride. I'm not a big tech guy, so you know, I'm not too concerned with all the technology that it has, but it's fun to ride. All in all, the new Pan America is a really impressive motorcycle. Both Alex and I enjoy it a lot. The fit and finish is great. It's competitive in the segment. The performance is impressive. If you're shopping for an ADV, or you even just want a motorcycle to do a lot of long highway trips on, this one is worth a look because it's a blast. Anyways, be sure to go back to tflbike.com for more news, views, and real-world reviews, and we'll see you in the next video.